Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle.
I was hired by Judge Kenneth Turner right out of law school, and ran a program called CASA, Court Appointed Special Advocates, for Judge Turner for several years until he pulled me in as his chief staff attorney. I still ran CASA and hung a robe on me, and worked under his tutelage and directorship. When Senator Person won the seat, he made it known, and I respect his vision, that he was going to be a caretaker of the system, the programs and things that Judge Turner had put in place. And he was. Now, we got to give him credit. He made some good changes during his tenure. When I sat down with my sweet wife and said, I want to run for office, she said, why do you want to do this? And I told her that I loved what I did, and that the only way I could guarantee my continuance was to run, because if I picked the wrong horse to ride in on, I'd be out of a job. And she said, well, what's your long-term goal if you win the seat? And I told her, I said, well, not wanting to measure the drapes, but I see myself as a change agent. I didn't always agree with my former boss, Judge Turner, on some of his interpretations of the law, but he was the judge. I didn't always agree with Curtis Person on how he did things, but he was the judge. I came in with the desire to take a court that was rather insular, okay, for two reasons. One, the law makes it insular in a lot of ways. Most of our proceedings are sealed to the public to protect the children and families. But it was also insular because of personalities. Judge Turner had, in his later years, had withdrawn from the community. Curtis, to some extent, withdrew from the community in his later years. I told someone early on that it was my job to get in here and open this court up so that the community could see the good work we're doing, and maybe instill a desire in some of those community members to get down here and help us do what we do, because we use a lot of volunteers. So I came in with the goal of changing the culture, of opening the court up. That man right there is a good reason I went after him. I knew he could help me do that. And pushing community to create the programs that were needed that we could then use to help these kids and their families.
Right.
So when I got elected, I took a week off, went to Florida to try to wrap my head around winning. And Winsome Gale, who's lead counsel for DOJ, called me. We were somewhere way down near Mobile, Mississippi, and I was pumping gas when my phone rang, and it was Winsome. She congratulated me and said she'd like to come, just see me, to figure out who I was and where I wanted to take the court. And I remember that visit because she sat on the couch right there, and I told her, I said, Winsome, I intend to use the memorandum of agreement between us as a blueprint to get this court where I need to get it, because it is a model court. But at the end of the juncture, whenever that is, I want this court to be the most advanced, forward-thinking juvenile court in the nation, as far as services to the community, as an agency whose really sole design beyond justice is rehabilitation, to give children and families the opportunity to overcome their problems and become productive citizens. And she, I think, was satisfied with that. But I'm not going to gloss it over. We've had a rocky relationship. They're auditors, you know, and that's how you deal with them as auditors.
There was a letter that was signed off on by yourself, Mayor Luttrell, Sheriff Bill
Right,
Odom,
right.
requesting that the oversight be discontinued.
Mhm.
Was that your request, or was that your, did you initiate that, and what was the thinking behind that? If
I can tell you exactly what happened. I was not in the meeting. Jeff Sessions came to Memphis on what he called his listening tour.
Right.
I was invited to his press conference the night before the press conference by one of the federal agents here. And that morning before the press conference, he had a meeting with Mayor Strickland, Mayor Luttrell, Bill Gibbons from the Crime Commission, Amy Wyrick, the DA, Mike Rollins, the Chief of Police, and I think the only other person in the room besides him was Larry Lorenzi, the acting U.S. Attorney General. Mark Luttrell called me that afternoon and said, Dan, General Sessions opened the meeting by saying, I'm here. If you have any issues that I can help you with, please let me know. And Luttrell used that opportunity to say, well, let's talk about this MOA. And he started by telling General Sessions that the MOA has resulted in a lot of good changes, that the relationship that grew out of the agreement was a lot more beneficial than if there had been a lawsuit. And it allowed us to do the work to get to where we needed to be. But that it had recently, here near the end of it, had gotten onerous in some of their requests. Things we cannot do legally, they're trying to get us to do.
Is that because of state law?
The state law,
Okay.
yeah. And I can give you details on that, be glad to. And that opened the door for Amy and her concerns. Even though she's not under the MOA, she has a lot of pressure on her from the department because she's down here prosecuting cases. It opened the door for Mike Rollins to voice his concerns and Bill Gibbons to voice his concerns. At the end of the meeting, the mayor said, General Sessions turned to me and said, Mayor, send me a letter outlining your concerns. The gist of the letter was to General Sessions, we're asking that you review the memorandum of agreement. If you agree with us that we are at the end of it, we would ask you to terminate the agreement and remove us from oversight. If you don't, let us know what we need to do to get there.
Is it your belief that enough has been done to correct some fairly significantly egregious issues that have impacted families, and particularly our children, particularly African American children?
Absolutely.
You know, in a significant way. I mean, do you know, in 3 years that you've, you know, been at the helm, do you feel like we've reached that point?
Yes, I do.
And, you know, given some of the reports that have come out, you know, from the department that seem to document, that seem to speak contrary to that. It says that there are remaining issues here. Cite some examples for me and some specific instances where you feel, where you've come to that conclusion.
Okay. First off, you have to understand the memorandum of agreement is in 3 parts.
Okay.
There's equal protection, and that is the black-white issue.
Sure.
There is due process, which is what goes on in the courtroom, right? And then there's safety from harm, which is the detention center.
Right.
Now, I will start with the detention center, which I no longer control. You know, I handed that over to the sheriff. They have done the training, they have brought in the professionals, they've got their staff trained. They do have some documentation work that they need to finish. The biggest problem is not what's going on up in detention, it's the physical facility itself. It's over 40 years old. It is not state of the art. And because it's not, it lends to problems we can't control. A good example, if you have 2 young men up there who are from separate gangs, we have no way of separating them. Well, if those guys want to duke it out up there, it's very difficult to stop it. Whereas in a modern facility with a pod design, you put your Crips over here, you put your Bloods over here, you can separate the gangs or the rivals.
Sure.
So the problem is bigger than something we can solve with a 40-year-old facility.